evening, thank you for watching our short introduction video and welcome to another great event. I would like to warmly welcome you all. My name is Sabrina Erdogan. I am an enthusiastic teacher of history and psychology at Hillcrest Girls' School, and I am a proud volunteer of the Dialogue Society. The Dialogue Society's core values are community, communication, and of course dialogue between different cultures, religions, social classes, communities and philosophies of every kind. Personally, what drew me towards this charity is its beautiful goal to enhance social cohesion and embracing of difference. One of the many lovely events that the Dialogue Society holds is the annual Christmas dinner community event. I have beautiful memories of these annual Christmas gatherings. The highlight of these events, apart from the delicious Turkish cuisine, is the meeting of new people from a variety of backgrounds. It has always been a welcoming, festive and warm occasion, bringing people together who have a common passion to learn about each other, facilitated by the Dialogue Society. During this past year, 2020, we have inevitably become familiar with the various virtual platforms which have overtaken the normal gathering of people. Whilst it can never fully be the same as what we were previously used to, I do hope that we can embrace this virtual opportunity today in hearing the brilliant speeches, presentations and performances from our excellent guests and contributors on the topic of happy neighbourhoods. This is an extremely relevant topic as the UK and world has, in these challenging times, persevered, supported each other, stayed as connected as possible and helped each other in many ways. Support for key workers such as teachers and those working for the NHS has been widespread. Additionally, our communities and neighbourhoods have stayed positive and together through all challenges and hardships. This has varied massively, from buying groceries for those self-isolating, to holding communal prayers on Zoom, to vast food bank donations, beautiful posters of thank you, and so on. This is a true spirit of Christmas, a happy festival and celebration. It is a time to give, to love, to gather, to care, and to sing. The pandemic, whilst very serious, can never destroy the beautiful and powerful spirit of this precious season. It is a festive season that fills our hearts with joy and love, which cannot be defeated by any scale of distance. The government has justifiably discouraged the gathering of people. However, due to our determined communities who have been so active virtually and within all the COVID measures, I am certain that the community spirit will triumph. I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Now, without further ado, I will not eat up any more of our special guest time. Firstly, we would like to share a video of some memories from Birmingham's branch of the Dialogue Society. Our first speaker of the evening will be Labour Councillor John Cotton for Glebe Farm and Tile Cross Ward and Cabinet Member for Social Inclusion, Community Safety and Equalities. Over to you, Councillor John Cotton.
Thank you very much, Sabrina. It's a real pleasure to join you at this virtual event this evening. And I think for a diverse city like Birmingham, you know, a city of over a million citizens with roots right around the globe, 187 different nationalities, a multiplicity of faiths and worldviews, a wealth of experience mirrored by some significant challenges around economic and social inequality. That whole principle of dialogue, of shared space, of finding the opportunity to engage, to converse, explore, that's absolutely vital. It's the glue that holds us together. So thank you to you for all that you do as the Dialogue Society to bring people together and strengthen the bonds between the many communities that make up this great city of ours. And I think how we interact with each other, conversation, the words of comfort that we extend to each other in times of trouble, the shared laughter, the hugs and the handshakes, the things that are the basic currency of our shared humanity. This year, we've experienced a currency crisis, haven't we? And just like a currency crisis that you experience in financial terms, it's been shocking, it's been destabilising, and it will have long-term consequences. And I think how we choose to respond to this currency crisis will define us as a society too. Over the last few months, the pandemic has shone a very stark light on our society. It's shown us the good and it's shown us the bad with an almost brutal clarity at times. I think the pandemic's reminded us how fragile our existence can be, how quickly we, or those that we know and love, can succumb, and how devastating the grief and the shock is for those who are left behind. And it's also shown us, again, in the starkest possible terms, the extent to which our society remains an unjust and an unequal place. And these statistics tell the story. The pandemic has almost certainly affected people in every walk of life. There's no doubt about that. But it's also clear that there's been a disproportionate impact of COVID infections and deaths amongst those who have the least. So it's been the people living below the poverty line, in overcrowded houses, holding the kind of jobs where you can't stay and work from home, who've borne the brunt of COVID. And it's intensified and deepened those inequalities that already disfigure our society. And I think how we respond to that, whether we choose to carry on as we are, or instead decide that building back better means taking a different approach to how we support our fellow citizens, that will be a major test of our collective commitment to those values of friendship and solidarity, which I think are the very foundation of how you build those happy, cohesive neighbourhoods we all want to see. And this is really where, after this year, I'm not without hope, because I think the response from the communities of our city to those challenges that COVID posed has been incredibly visible and a very moving articulation of those very values of friendship and solidarity. At its most basic and its most visible, we saw it in the weekly clap for carers and key workers, where we all went out on our doorsteps on a Thursday night to give thanks for that amazing work that citizens were doing to keep people safe, to provide care and keep vital services running. And it became a great act of collective solidarity. And if I just look at the streets in my own patch that I represent in the east of the city, it was also seen as an opportunity to build that stronger sense of local connection and identity that was certainly seized by residents in my part of the world. But it also goes deeper than that. It's been a spurt of very practical action with regard to social justice. So we've seen the dedication of public servants, the people who've been staffing our health and care services, often many of them chronically underpaid and neglected, but doing that work of delivering care and compassion. The emergency services, local government workers, the people who staff public transport systems, their efforts, I think, have been a powerful articulation of that spirit of community and solidarity. And alongside that, we've seen this amazing mobilisation of civic society, which I think you touched on in your opening remarks, Sabrina. You know, volunteers, people of goodwill and kindness, rolling up the sleeves and getting stuck in to the work of helping others. And these are the people who in Birmingham who are crucial to getting over 300,000 items of food out to isolated and vulnerable people living in our communities. These are the people who are offering the voices of friendship and support to those who are often confined to their homes for weeks on end. They're the people who've been reaching out to the most marginalised, those without a home or a roof to call their own, those dealing with some real difficulties around mental or physical health, issues of addiction and dependency. They're the people who've been supporting those without a voice. And I think particularly of the asylum seekers within our city, stuck in the appalling limbo of temporary accommodation or without recourse to public funds. So I look at all that amazing effort, that vivid and practical articulation of those values of friendship, those values of solidarity and of self-sacrifice. And I do believe there is much ground for hope and optimism about the future. And the people who've been engaged in that work have been of all faiths and none. Their personal politics will vary, their perspectives and motives, they're all personal, they're all different, but they're united by common values. And these, I think, are the essential building blocks for happy neighbourhoods in our city and in our country. I think we all approach the Christmas season with some fervent hopes that 2021 will be very different to the dark days that we've been through this year. The prospect of the vaccine and a return to something resembling what we would recognise as normality is a welcome one for all of us. But what we mustn't do in our eagerness to re-embrace that normality is also to lapse back into our old ways of thinking. And this may sound rather bizarre, but I think there's a real danger that unless we are careful, that move back into normality, which by definition will bring us into greater physical contact once more with our fellow human beings, may also be accompanied by a retreat from the kind of civic space as we start to focus more exclusively on our own lives and careers again, rather than our place and our purpose as part of a neighbourhood, as part of a community and a wider society. So I think there has to be a challenge to our thinking at all levels if we are really going to build back better. So for people like me, policymakers, people who hold public office, we need to be thinking about how we create the spaces and the opportunities to take collective action to address those social ills, and how we use public resources effectively to invest in nurturing and growing social capital. All of us have to understand that if we want happy neighbourhoods and a cohesive society, that can't be built upon unstable foundations. That means we have to address those serious inequalities and injustices in our economy, in the gulf between people's health and people's life chances. Because inequality doesn't just hurt those who are crushed by it, it hurts us all as a society, and it holds each and every one of us back. So I think a happy neighbourhood is one that's built upon those principles of social justice. And the one thing that I think we've glimpsed in the midst of all this awful, terrible months that we've been through is the possibilities and the opportunities to build that better and more just future. And I think it's really down to all of us to work collectively to seize that moment. And I really hope that as we head into next year, that is exactly what we will do as a city and as a country. So real pleasure to join you here this evening to be part of this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor John Cotton. That was absolutely brilliant. Thank you there for highlighting the inequalities in society that have been further highlighted during this pandemic, but still emphasising the beautiful things that society has done and spreading a beautiful, optimistic message of hope to us all. Amongst all the challenges, a happy neighbourhood can be hopefully attained. Next will be a presentation by Vanessa Grimes, who has a fire-formed pottery studio in Coventry and will be presenting about the Coffee Mornings project and pottery work. Over to you, Vanessa Grimes.
Hi, thanks for having me. I feel like I don't have very many credentials and no letters after my name. Anyway, I'm going to share a presentation that I've made, and it's kind of the story of lockdown for me and for my community. So this is a very, very small grassroots thing that's happened for me. So there we go. In March 2020, I was doing an Art Foundation course at Coventry University. This is one of the prints that I did, and it's about refugees. So I was looking at the crossing of the Aegean Sea from Turkey to Greece, and the experience of reaching towards hope and about the darkness beneath us, and how we travel towards hope even though there's stuff underneath the surface that could pull us down. So then within 1 week it was lockdown, and we hadn't finished our course. We hadn't all of the final shows were cancelled. I was sat staring at the shadows on my wall, and I hadn't finished all of my final pieces. Luckily, I managed to get stuff done in my own house. I used a community pottery to fire these pieces, which are imprints off a life jacket, and there are 71 of them to represent the 71 people that died crossing the sea in 2019. So I'm quite busy with that for a while, and then I got a bit bored when I'd finished that, and I was making some jam from my plum tree, and I thought, who doesn't like plum jam? And I thought, there's a lot of people on my road. It's a little cul-de-sac in Bourneville, and I don't really know very many of them, but I bet they'd probably like some jam. So I the starting thing for me really was making some jam and delivering it to all of my neighbours. And then I decided that I had too much tat in my house. So I decided that I'd maybe put a table outside my house and try and shift some of the stuff I didn't need. So I had a bric-a-brac table. And then I was speaking to my very next door neighbour, and we were trying to work out what I could do, because I was a supply teacher. And obviously my thinking when I'd done Art Foundation was that there's never going to not be a need for supply teachers, apart from there suddenly was, because the people went at school. And so I started making face masks and started chatting to a couple of my neighbours, and then I made a little necktie for my neighbour's dog, and then I was talking to them and I said, I wonder whether we could have a coffee morning outside on the green outside our houses, and I wonder who would come, and do you think it would work? So we decided to have a go. I put a little note through everybody's door just to see who would turn up. Oh, I did some sewing as well. There you are. That's some scrubs for a friend's daughter. So over the lockdown, I've made many cakes, some of them beautiful, some of them less aesthetically pleasing, but they were quite tasty. This is my road, and this is an Eid party. So during Ramadan, I realised that that people on my road were celebrating Ramadan in a very different way to normal, and that there wasn't the normal visiting friends and family and eating together. So I did drop off some little treats for them every now and then. And then Bedia Mohammed did all of this for Eid. We had an Eid celebration. This is Bedia's lovely cooking, some beautiful vine leaves there, and there's a little scone from me as well in the corner. We had a sunflower growing competition. So one of our neighbours is really into gardening. He gave everybody a little sunflower plant, and I won the sunflower competition. I was very pleased with myself. But it was lovely to do, and we're definitely planning now that next year we're going to have our sunflowers on our front lawns so that we can all see how we're getting on. Another friend made this coaster with a laser cutter, and the middle bit is a map of our area, and I'm going to keep it because it's just been fantastic to see the blossoming of the community. We had a fine dining thing in June where we put out food for a dish each, and then went round and collected our dinners, and we did actually sit socially distanced in someone's garden to eat together in the end. We've done collective fruit collecting. We've got lots and lots of fruit trees because we live in Bourneville, but we don't always collect the fruit because who needs like 500 cooking apples all at once? So now we can collect them and then share them out and make better use of them. This is a quote from one of the people on the road, which I'll just read out. Eve said, "What it gave me is a sense of community. I moved down from Derby to be with my new partner in Bourneville during lockdown. In Derby, I have lots of friends and people say hello to me when I'm out and about. My partner's lived on this road since 1974, but he didn't know many people. Now we know everyone, and it feels like I have my own community here too. I think sometimes people just need a reason to start talking, almost permission, and that is what coffee mornings have given us." So that's what it gave me was the courage to actually set up my new business. This is me and my partner setting up a studio in Coventry. The kiln is on right now in my garage. and we're making pottery. But having the community around me to support me and say, well, you can do this, has been really fantastic, and I'm very excited to live here and looking forward to all the things that our road is going to do in the future, because we're definitely not stopping. We're still having coffee mornings now round a fire pit, even though it's freezing cold. So that's the business cards we've just had done, and we're about to start a year of making. So thanks for having me. I think that's all I've got to say.
Oh, thank you so much, Vanessa Grimes. That was absolutely brilliant to hear and watch. Thank you for sharing all of those beautiful projects that you've been involved with. So many, like ranging from art, plum jam, Eid celebrations, fruit collecting, face masks and coffee mornings. You have a truly beautiful neighbourhood, and it's clear that you've highly contributed to its happiness and blossoming this year, as well as them helping you to start your business and have the confidence to do so. Thank you so much. Next, we have Mr. Mutlu Sanjak Tutar, an activist and volunteer of Dialogue Society. Over to you, Mr. Sanjak Tutar.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Respected panelists and valuable attendees. This evening, I'm invited to share my feelings and thoughts towards the approaching Christmas, and to share a few recent examples of my voluntary initiatives in my neighborhoods. Starting with Christmas. To me, Christmas is the name of a special and significant time in the year. And such specialness and significance have three layers. First, in the religious sphere, it is for the commemoration of the birth of Jesus, who in my doubtless Islamic faith is an utmost precious gift of Allah to humankind. His mother, Virgin Mary, is the most noble, chaste and virtuous woman of all times, and gave him a purely miraculous birth on this commemorated day. This birthday is expressly referred to in Quran, declaring peace, salam, upon Jesus on that day, with the newborn baby's own words of himself. And therefore, salam, peace be upon him, Jesus, by this occasion again. Secondly, Christmas is a day of utmost excitement, happiness, and hope to billions of people we love. What is special to so many people we love can no way be ordinary to us. And third layer of significance and specialness is, for long years, Christmas has already gained a global recognition as a common cultural value beyond its religious origins and meanings, which makes it one of the very few global occasions in a year where the global society has a common moment of peace and relief. There is no point to keep outside and leave the joy of being us humans all together, at least for once in this great annual occasion. As with these thoughts and feelings, I and my family would like to pass you our hearts full best wishes of Merry Christmas. Well, a few quick words around the theme of today's event, Happy Neighborhoods. Regular charitable activity is an intrinsic lifestyle for me and my family. At the beginning of the COVID-19 outbreak, we sent out phone messages to our neighbors whose telephone numbers we had. We made an open declaration of volunteering to support our neighbors in any way they could potentially need us. We said, we are your arms and feet outside the doors whenever you would like to call us. For those who we thought would be vulnerable, if we were unable to reach out to them, we went to their addresses, knocked the doors, stayed well apart from the doorsteps, and said the above face to face. We did this in all the 3 neighborhoods we lived in Milton Keynes now and before. For the neighbors we hadn't met yet in our current street, we attached a banner in bold, large characters at our windows that we are COVID-19 response volunteers in this house, and our neighbors were most welcome to knock our door anytime, 7x24. Meanwhile, we organized a COVID-19 response cooperation group on WhatsApp for our current and previous neighborhoods in the city. On the other hand, we thought that mobilizing volunteer capacities of people for logistic support of neighbors was very much required, but it would not be sufficient to cover many other impacts of the outbreak. Among those was economic damage causing millions of job loss in the broader scale in the country. This would mean devastating psychological damage to many individuals, households, youth, parents, children, directly and indirectly. If we were rich people with a lot of money, we wouldn't hesitate to spread it in this kind of hard times. However, we were not financially rich. But at least we had something materially valuable and effective to distribute out. So we joined our times with a few friends towards setting up a nationwide charity through which we would freely distribute our materially most valuable assets: quality time, knowledge, and experience to teach people perhaps the luckiest profession in times of the outbreak: high skill information technology expertise, which we did have. We sent out declarations to our neighbors that we are keen to help any person who recently lost their jobs and wants to start or resume a career in IT sector. And this would be by offering totally free trainings and hands-on practice workshops, along with various forms of job hunting guidance. Dear all, please, let's all continue our great works for our neighbors. Even those of us who may not have any other means possible, we can at least speak to our lonely neighbors. In fact, that's a good way to speak to God as well. He will hear us in their ears and will definitely respond to us through their tongues. Merry Christmas and happy, healthy, prosperous New Year to everyone. Thanks for having me this evening. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sanjak Tutar. That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you for reminding us of the different connections religiously to Christmas, as well as emphasising the global significance of Christmas to everyone. You were so kind to help out as the arms and feet for your neighbours. Your empathy in regards to the varying impacts of this pandemic is truly inspiring. Sharing your biggest wealth, time, knowledge and experience. I'm certain this impact was not only significant in the short term for those people, but definitely in the long term into the future. Thank you so much. Now we will hear from Canon Dr. Andrew Smith, Director of Interfaith Relations for the Bishop of Birmingham. Over to you, Dr. Smith.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the welcome, and thank you for this opportunity to share with you in this really good event celebrating Christmas and thinking about happy neighbourhoods. And in some ways, those phrases do go together in the Christian story. As Christians, like many others, we're celebrating the birth of Jesus. This time next week, we'll be in the middle of our celebrations. And for Christians, this is about celebrating him coming, being born of the Virgin Mary, but coming in the Christian belief as the Son of God. It's in the nativity accounts in the Bible. Jesus is given many different names and titles to help us understand a little bit about who he was and who he is. Names such as the Prince of Peace or the Messiah. And my favourite one is Emmanuel, which means God with us. God with us, one of the most precious names that Jesus was given. In the Gospel of John, in the Bible, there's a very famous verse that says, "The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and truth." And this is referring to Jesus, sometimes called the Word, becoming a human and living amongst us. There was another writer who took that verse and wrote it in this way. He said, "The Word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighbourhood." The idea that God could be present with us, creating happy neighbourhoods. And for me, I think this is one of the most amazing and profound mysteries of the Christian Christmas story, that God came to earth in human form. It's a belief that sets it apart from other accounts or other beliefs with how God interacts with his creation. It's very at the centre of the Christian belief, this sense of Emmanuel, God with us. But this belief is not just a kind of how we relate to God and how we understand him, but it's a huge driver for me and for many other Christians about how we feel called to live. The belief that God chooses to live with us, to come and be with us, to be present with us, inspires us to live out our faith by being present with others, going to be with others, alongside others, to be in their neighbourhoods, to be part of the community. It's why in the Church of England, the priests live in the parish next door to the church. Wherever it is, wherever they've come from, they move in and live there because of this belief. It's why my interfaith work that I am a great privilege to do is really focused on relationships with people rather than ideologies. How do people live together, creating happy neighbourhoods? And that means working hard at building peace between neighbours, caring for the vulnerable and those most in need, the kind of things that we've just heard about. As a Christian, this is my driving force, but many others of different faiths or no faith have their own reasons why they want to create happy neighbourhoods. But I'm just going to hand over now, because I'm very pleased that a friend of mine, Jill Appleton, is here this evening as well. Jill is a Christian. She's on the leadership of St Boniface Church in Quinton. She's called a lay reader. She's not ordained, she's not a priest, but she's very involved in the leadership. And their church has been doing some amazing things around this idea of being with the community. And I just thought it'd be really helpful and interesting for Jill to pick up this theme about being with and share some of the stories of what they're doing. So Jill, if I could hand over to you at this point.
Thank you, Andrew. Yes, so in Quinton, which is one of the outer estates of Birmingham, where for many years, for 60 plus years, St Boniface Church has really lived at the heart of this community. And just as other people have shared this evening, during this pandemic, we've never seen the importance in the way that we have now of what it means to love your neighbour, what it means to serve your neighbourhood, and what it means actually to be out in our community, not just within a particular building. And like churches and mosques and other places of worship across the country, our building has been closed since March. So the challenge for us has been how, instead of actually having people coming to us, how are we getting out into our community? How are we serving our community? And it's always been the case in Quinton that at Christmas, people who never come to church at any other time come to church. It seems to be that this festival of Christmas, this celebration of Jesus' birth, is the one thing that people all want to be part of. And so for us, a big challenge has been, how do we take that out into our community when people can't come into church? And I just want to share a few of the things that we're doing over the next week that really are the culmination of what we've been doing over lockdown, of going out to our neighbours, of serving our neighbours. Quinton is an area where there's a very high unemployment rate, where the divisions that have been created by this pandemic have never been so clear, of people living in poverty. And so our food bank, which has always been busy, has never been as busy as it is right now. But to bring Christmas, to bring the story of Christmas out to people rather than inviting them into our building, we've got a number of events on. So on over this weekend, we have something called Follow the Star, where we've got a group of people who are performing drama in different parts of Quinton. There's a map already being published on Facebook where the children can come out and they can receive socially distanced receive sweets, but where we're taking the music of Christmas and the story of Christmas actually around our streets. On Monday we've got open air carols outside our church, but actually we're being a bit more creative. So there have been decorations put on trees around Quinton that people can go and help themselves to, with a little there's a little tag to each of them, directing them to all the different things that they can access through our church. A whole army of people on Christmas Day will be cooking dinners for people in our community who just can't afford to feed themselves at this time. And this evening, just prior to this session, I was out delivering through Birmingham City Mission, but delivering parcels of presents to families who just aren't in a position to be able to pay for presents, to buy presents for their children. And that's something, as a church, we had a service 2 weeks ago, online service, but we had a drive-through where people could drop off toys that we could then redistribute to people in our community. And what's been really amazing, actually, are the number of people in the community who wouldn't come, as I say, come to church during the year, who have signed up for our Christingle service to see that online. So we have well over 100 families outside of our church families who we've delivered a Christingle pack to. So a Christingle is an orange with various things that are put into it that tell the story and give people a real sense of the true meaning of Christmas. And in those packages, we've been able to put presents and cards and things for people in our community. So I've been really excited by the creative ways that people in our congregation have looked to show that real sense of what loving your neighbour means, particularly at Christmas. Christmas seems to be a time, doesn't it, when poverty is even more highlighted, when being isolated, when you live alone, is even more highlighted. And so all the residential homes for the elderly, all the folk there are receiving gift bags from people in our congregation, just to try and alleviate some of the loneliness, but also to share some of that joy that Christmas brings. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. Really, really good to hear that. And thanks for being part of this evening. And again, thanks to the Dialogue Society for inviting us. Thank you for this good event. And just to wish you all a very, very happy Christmas. Thank you.
Thank you so much, both Dr. Andrew Smith and Jill Appleton. That was absolutely beautiful. Dr. Andrew Smith, thank you for sharing the beautiful meaning of Christmas, God being present with us, creating happy neighbourhoods, your advice that God, with this Christmas miracle, is encouraging us to live and be present together. And then complementing that beautifully was Jill Appleton. Thank you so much for sharing all the amazing things that you and your church are getting involved in, such as cooking food for people who are struggling, gift bags, delivering gifts to those in need, as well as Christingle services, which I personally love due to their beautiful visual meaning for Christmas. You're absolutely right that this pandemic has really made us truly love our neighbour and has encouraged us to serve our community. Thank you both of you. That was absolutely beautiful. We will now have a presentation from Mrs. Rachel Smith, a member of the congregation of St Albans Church in Highgate, making a Christmas pudding and its importance in her family's Christmas dinner. Over to you, Mrs. Smith.
Hello, I'm delighted to give this presentation, and I was delighted to be asked by my Turkish Muslim friends across the road if I would show people how to make a Christmas pudding. And it took me right back to my childhood, because I used to watch my grandmother and then my mother making Christmas puddings. But I have to confess that I've never actually made one before myself. But I thought I could rise to the occasion, and hopefully the pudding would as well. Okay, so first of all, I went and had a look at my grandmother's recipe, which is in her old copy of Mrs. Beaton's cookery book. And as I think you might see, she's written helpfully puddings, 1924. So it's almost 100 years old, this recipe. And she made a lot of puddings, so the quantities were rather great. So I asked my sister-in-law, who comes from Ireland and regularly makes her own delicious puddings, how she made hers, and she helped with the quantities. But being from Ireland, she adds a whole bottle of stout and some rum to hers, and I wanted to give them away to my Muslim friends. So I have adapted her recipe and this recipe and made one a little bit different of my own. So here am I in my kitchen. I'll show you a bit more in a minute, but these are the ingredients that I've got. So milk, lemon juice and zest, sultanas, currants, raisins, glacé cherries, candied peel, grated carrots, flour, breadcrumbs, demerara sugar and vegetable suet, and then salt a little bit, and spices, which consist of allspice and nutmeg, and that's it. So that's what goes into a pudding. And you make the pudding over 2 days. I'm going to take you now into my kitchen and we'll see how I mixed all these different ingredients. Hello, welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make a traditional Christmas pudding. Christmas puddings are normally made about 1 month before Christmas, and you boil them for 8 hours and then again on Christmas Day. But they can keep for up to a year or even longer probably. So I've speeded myself up a bit because it goes on rather a long time. And here I am adding all the dried ingredients one by one. I don't think the order particularly matters. I hope it doesn't. And you can see the lemons going in now, and now the spice. As I said, usually we make them about a month before Christmas, at the weekend before the first week of Advent. Advent is when we prepared both spiritually and materially for the arrival of Jesus Christ. And once you've got all the ingredients into your pudding mixture, you invite everybody in your household to come and make a wish. And of course, you don't tell anybody what the wish is, but I'm sure the wish of my grandmother or my mother was that the pudding would be nice. And indeed, it was my wish as well. Because you keep the puddings for at least a month, and you can keep them up to a year. And as we're not going to see my brother this year, he said he would like one for Easter. So I'm hoping it's good enough for that. So now I've put all the eggs in, 4 eggs, and I'm just showing the milk because I wasn't sure how much to put in. So you should make it rather like a rather stiff fruit cake. And when I've mixed everything, then I cover it with cling film and leave it overnight for the fruit to absorb all the liquids. And now we're going to go to the second day, and you'll see me in the kitchen again. And I'll just show you the beginning of the next process. Hello, welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to make a traditional Christmas. Hello, welcome to my kitchen again. And here is my pudding, which has been sitting overnight, absorbing all the liquid. So I'm just going to test the consistency. I think it's okay, it's fairly stiff. Okay, so the next stage is to grease the basins and then put a circle of buttered paper over the top, which you've cut to shape. And then the next stage, here on the left-hand side, what I'm doing is covering the pudding with greaseproof paper, and this has a pleat in it to allow the puddings to rise. And that has to be tied on very firmly, as you can see here in this next one, with string. And then I cover it again with some aluminium foil. And as I said, it has to be really, really tight so that you don't allow any of the steam to get in when you steam the puddings, because you have to steam them for 8 hours. And there I am just finishing it off. You make a sort of handle with the string to pick it up. So there are my 2 puddings, and this is again part of the tradition in my family that we use this fish kettle. You can see that it has this thing in the bottom which raises the pudding slightly off the bottom, and I would put boiling water about halfway up and then cover it with a lid and then leave it for 8 hours so that it steams away. And you have to keep topping it up. You have to keep remembering that, because it would be disastrous to boil dry. I'm actually made 5 puddings, and the others I've just put in ordinary saucepans with a saucer underneath to hold them off the base. So here are my puddings, all steamed, and I was really pleased with the colour of them. They should go a nice dark brown colour because the sugar caramelizes, and I think it looks as though it's been fairly successful. But as they say, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, so we don't know yet. So on Christmas Day, traditionally you have the pudding after the turkey or whatever you've had for the main meal. And we follow the tradition, although we haven't put any alcohol in our puddings, and we never did, even in my grandmother's day. We do follow the tradition to put a sprig of holly in the top, and we like to pour brandy over the top in my family, which many people do, and you set it alight so it all burns off, but you just do it for dramatic effect. But you don't have to do this. You can equally well eat it with ice cream or cream or custard, and it's equally delicious, or you can just have it on its own. So I'm really glad to have been asked how to do this, and it was great fun doing it. And it brought alive, again, lots of memories of my family and when we had lots of people to stay with us at Christmas, and the joy of making these puddings and the excitement as a child of making them with my grandmother. So I would like to thank my friends for asking me to make this video and to show you, to share it with you through the Dialogue Society. And I wish you a Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Rachel Smith. That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your precious 100-year-old Christmas pudding recipe and even adapting it so your Muslim friends can enjoy it. The fact that they can keep for so long is absolutely incredible. I'm definitely going to give it a go next year. Thank you so much for sharing with us such a special part of your Advent experience, including the making of this beautiful pudding and making a wish. The final products look absolutely delicious. I love the holly on top. Thank you so much. We will now hear from David Thomas, FBA, Emeritus Professor of Christianity and Islam, University of Birmingham. Over to you, David Thomas, FBA.
Here we are. Thank you very much. As you say, I used to be Professor of Christianity and Islam at the University of Birmingham. So what I have to say is possibly a little bit more academic than we've heard so far, though I must say, just watching Rachel Smith making that Christmas pudding took me back many, many years to my childhood, and I very much hope I'll get a pudding as good as those when a week today. As well as being an academic, I've also been involved in dialogues and dialogue meetings over the years, and thinking of the theme of this evening, I was taken back to a period about, I think 5 or 6 years ago. I used to live in Derby then, and I was attached to the cathedral. And what we did, one of the main things we did actually, was to try to make contact as a Christian organization with Muslims in Derby. And we found that the main mosque in Derby responded very well, and we regularly used to meet together. And we became friends. It seems to me that dialogue starts with people. I'm a man who deals with concepts very much, but it begins with people. And thinking of neighborliness, there was one particular incident that stays with me and always will stay with me. It was an action that, as a Christian, I can recognize, but it came from the Muslims in the mosque. It was decided among the religious organizations in Derby, and also socially aware organizations, it was decided to do something about people who had nowhere to sleep. Everywhere. I now live in Somerset, and it's surprising how many people here don't have anywhere to sleep, and everywhere that is the case. And in Derby, one winter, it was decided that we would do our best to open religious buildings for people who just had nowhere. And that happened. Unfortunately, the mosque decided that this would not be appropriate. That might seem a rather negative step, but what the mosque then did was pay for food for the down and outs, so that when they came to the cathedral and other churches in Derby, I think it was about 9 o'clock at night, on the worst, the nights with the worst weather, they would be given a hot meal and they wouldn't know it, but it was the people, the Muslims of the mosque, who paid for this. And what we were told by the Imam in the mosque was that they would pay for it, but that we should buy the food and should distribute it. Because, as they said, they wouldn't be wanting our Muslim food, and so you do it for us. Now, when you think of it, that was a gesture that was, you might say, self-denying. Those people who ate that food had no idea that the food was being paid for by the mosque. The mosque asked for no publicity, they asked for no thanks, they just did it. And that seems to me a very eloquent example of neighborliness. And it takes me to what, as a Christian, I would regard as maybe the great model example of neighborliness. And that comes in one of the teachings of Jesus as it's recorded in the third of the four Gospels, the Gospel according to St. Luke. And it's the parable, a story with an inner meaning. It's the parable of the Good Samaritan. Maybe you know the parable, but if not, I'll try and outline it very quickly now. Jesus talks about a man who was traveling on the road from Jerusalem down to the city of Jericho, and he was attacked. And a number of, well, two actually, Jewish religious representatives saw him, but they just walked past. They ignored him. This was a man from their own society. And a man from another nation came past. He was a Samaritan. It's important to realize that Samaritans and Jews simply did not get on. They believed different things. And so when Jesus said that the person who stopped and helped the wounded man was a Samaritan, he was really saying something important. I'll come to that in a moment. And what the Samaritan does, he tends to the man's wounds. He then puts him on his own donkey. He takes him to an inn and makes sure that he has lodging at the inn. And he says to the innkeeper that he will be coming back and he will pay for any extra expenses that the innkeeper has on his return. And when you think of it, just to stop and help the man to tend to his wounds is enough. But this Samaritan goes out of his way and out of his way and out of his way and out of his way again. What Jesus is saying is that a neighbor is somebody in need. There is no restriction to who that neighbor might be. It doesn't have to be somebody from your family, somebody from your own race, somebody from your own religion. A neighbor is somebody in need. And that, I think, is where neighborliness comes from. The teaching of Jesus, the meaning of Christmas in many ways, is to put others before yourself. As Andrew Smith has just said, God, according to Christian beliefs, came to earth at Christmas. It was a gift that God gave for no reason at all, except that God gave the gift. That Samaritan in the parable does exactly the same thing. And I think the people in the mosque in Derby did exactly the same thing, put others before themselves in the most neighbourly of gestures. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, David Thomas, FBA. That was absolutely beautiful. Thank you for sharing your academic expertise, reminding us that dialogue really does start with people, and sharing those experiences with Derby Mosque, who helped so many people without wanting any publicity. What beautiful neighbourliness indeed. Also, thank you for sharing the Good Samaritan story with us, which I do feel is so relevant for today's topic, emphasising that Jesus teaches us that a neighbour is somebody in need from any background. Thank you so much. We will now have a video presentation of a piano recital by Bahar Tiryaki, student of Solihull College and YouTuber.
I'm Bahar. I'm currently an art student at Solihull College. and I love playing the piano. I have a YouTube channel where I share my piano videos. Today I'm going to be playing Spring Waltz by Chopin. I hope you enjoy it. I wish everyone a happy Christmas.
That was absolutely stunning, stunning, Bahar. Thank you so much. You are truly a talented pianist. Thank you so much for sharing that piece with us. We will now hear from Reverend Professor Dr. Ian Williams. Ian has taught and supervised research in religious education at Birmingham City University School of Education. He has also taught and supervised research in the specialist field of Islamic Studies as the Markfield Institute of Higher Education, Newman University, Birmingham. Over to you, Reverend Professor Dr. Ian Williams.
Thank you very much indeed. And thank you for the invitation to participate in this Society of Dialogue interfaith meeting as we explore the practice of being good neighbours in the current health crisis. Through the experience of the past 10 months, and as it extends into 2021, we're entering a new era in our concerns of interfaith dialogue and interfaith social action, developing on from what has gone before. Being a good neighbour leads me, as it did David, as a Christian, to the New Testament and to the documents called Gospels, to the one attributed to Luke, and to that parable again told by Jesus of a traveller on the road down from Jerusalem to Jericho, beaten up, robbed, left by the roadside. Like many of you, I've travelled that road, and even today it has a chill, ominous descent down the mountainside into the Jericho plain. Two further travellers, identified as orthodox and pious men, who would have known by heart the Torah command to care for one's own and for the alien, pass by. But a third traveller, an outsider to orthodox religious practice, stops, administers first aid, takes him to a refuge, arranging for payment for the victim's care. Who is my neighbour? As the question was originally put to Jesus in the parable by a lawyer, and his response of, "Go and do likewise," as the outsider did to the victim, there is the answer. But does he? Does the lawyer do that? How do we respond on our own versions of the road to Jericho? For St. Philip's Cathedral in Birmingham, the road to Jericho is feeding the homeless with Let's Feed Brum, which feeds and clothes people with the development of Wrap Up Brum. This has led recently to fresh structures and initiatives, sustainable initiatives, on our own Jericho Road for 5 breakfasts, free breakfasts, and attaining years of funding to train people as volunteers with new skills for employability in the modern city. Such responses to the invitation, "Go and do likewise," have been in partnership between the Cathedral and St. Basil's Centre, for example, for the homeless in Birmingham, with interfaith groups, religious groups such as Langar Aid and others, many of whose supporters and workers share in an annual fundraising sleep out in the Cathedral churchyard each December, with the Cathedral staying open. This year, those sponsored supporters were invited to sleep out in a home garden for safety, raising funds to feed Brum, to wrap up Brum warm. Being a good neighbour in the context such as Birmingham takes myriad forms of doing likewise on our Jericho roads, not filling gaps left by government, but taking initiatives, sustainable, life-changing for those on their own Jericho roads. The Jericho Road in Birmingham is a demanding place, and the invitation, "Go and do likewise," leaves ideally no one excluded, no one on the margins of a good neighbourhood. May you have a blessed and renewing Christmas this year, and go and do likewise.
Thank you so much, Reverend Professor Dr. Ian Williams, for reminding us of Jesus' teachings of being a good neighbour and linking it to all the present day initiatives that have been going on, such as giving food, volunteering, charities such as St. Basil's, interfaith groups, sleep outs by the Cathedral, and keeping Brum wrapped up and warm and happy. I think the final speech there has been a beautiful message of go and do likewise, and that was absolutely precious. Thank you so much. I'm now going to open the floor for any final remarks. If anyone might wish to share something, I'll open the floor to you all if anyone might wish to share anything.
It was a great pleasure and privilege for me to hear all these nice words and wise words. Thank you very much for inviting me. Maya, I'm very, very grateful to be here.
Thank you.
So I think what you've done as a dialogue society, as a, I know with kind of a Muslim heritage, to open this invitation to Christians to celebrate Christmas, sort of reminiscent of what David Thomas was saying about the mosque in Derby being that kind of facilitator in the background, as it were. So really, I do really appreciate what you've done there to create this space for a celebration of Christmas. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, brilliant. Just for some concluding remarks, thank you so much from everyone for joining us this evening, and for all the speakers, contributors who have allowed for this virtual event to take place today. Happy Neighbourhoods has been such a wonderful topic to discuss this evening as we approach the magical day that is Christmas. And may we all rejoice in happiness and stay forever bonded as a community, nation and humanity. Thank you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Bye.
Joyful.
Yes.